I can't stress this enough how fun Warrior feels right now in dungeons, as well as questing, but mostly in dungeons. This is easily my favorite tank so far in the beta. I have been testing Druid, Monk, and Warrior, of course. My plan is to eventually get to DK, Paladin, and VDH very soon. But currently, let's take a look at why I love Warrior so much. Now, I am level 64. I actually just finished soloing this dungeon by myself. Didn't take very long, maybe 10-ish minutes or so. We're going to go over why this tank is kind of cracked right now and why it feels so good to play. Really quick, like damage breakdown, for example. A lot of it's coming from like bleeds. Of course, Thunderclap has gotten a little bit of a, not a rework, but a lot of like little glow ups this expansion so far. My DPS overall for this key was like this dungeon at level 64 was 20k. That feels really good, especially with the pulls being like fairly moderate size. We're going to actually walk through. You're going to probably see some clips of me soloing this dungeon shortly while I talk about these talents, but let's jump into it. So here's the talent tree layout that I currently have. I'm not going to go through everything. Maybe I'll have to save this for another video talking about these talents and the choices and why, but here is what's making this tank so fun. So a couple things that they brought forward from Shadowlands into Dragonflight is this Thunderlord legendary that we had access to in Shadowlands. So what it does is it increases the radius of your demoralizing shout by 5 yards. Pretty nice, but every time you hit an enemy with Thunderclap, it reduces the remaining cooldown of demoralizing shout by 1.5 seconds up to 4.5 seconds per Thunderclap, which overall is pretty good. Demoralizing shout is already a 45-second cooldown. At this rate, you can get it down to about a 30-second cooldown, 40-second or 20-second cooldown if you're, really aggressive with your pulls and if you're thunderclapping on cooldown. You also have like they brought back Show of Force, which is a conduit that we had access to. So Revenge deals 10% more damage, and it increased the damage of your next thunderclap by 25%. So you have this nice like little back and forth feedback loop where you deal damage with Revenge and or with Revenge, and then it gives you increased thunderclap damage, which in turn with Thunderlords gives you demoralizing shout, which if you take booming voice also makes you do more damage and generates 40 rage, which then allows you to spend more rage, kind of resulting into the ebb and flow of anger management, which is a talent that we've been seeing for a very long time in the meta. Using and spending rage actually reduces the cooldown of your avatar and your shield wall, which you should have at this point if you are going into anger management, pretty nicely, so you can always have kind of like really nice offensive and defensive cooldowns available. We're also seeing like more play from Into the Fray again, so you're gaining haste per enemy and ally within 10 yards, so you have like really nice base haste, so your auto attacks are pretty fast. And of course, like you can bolster your rage generation again with Unnerving Focus by using Last Stand as a more of a offensive cooldown instead of a defensive. Obviously they kind of have a little bit of synergy together, especially if you use Shield Wall first, then you go into Last Stand instead of using Last Stand and Unnerving Focus with like things like Conqueror's Banner, which is the meta currently in Season 4 Shadowlands. You can actually use it after Shield Wall to get Shield Wall back quicker and to get Avatar back up quicker, which turns back into Thunderlord. Now, looking at this tree at like a base value, you're like, okay, cool, like just some things from Shadowlands, cool. We're also seeing the return of the tier set bonus, so after spending Rage, you gain stacks, and at 8 stacks, you go into your Outburst, which causes your Shield Summon Thunderclap to be more effective and grant Ignore Pain. Really fun kind of play style here. So that is the actual spec tree. Now, if we come back to the class tree, I am in love with this class tree because it has so many options for both utility as well as like really unique builds with both like single target damage and AoE damage alike. So let's kind of talk about some of the things that are making this build possible. We have things like Thunderclap, which is kind of your base ability. Now you can have access to this in multiple trees. If you're playing Arms or Fury, you will actually have access to Thunderclap if you want, but for the Protection Warrior, we're able to go Thunderclap into Blood and Thunder, which increases the damage of your Thunderclap by 10%, and whenever you Thunderclap a target that's affected by your Rend, it applies to 5 nearby targets, which is just kind of cool. At first I was like, maybe Rend won't be doing that much damage. It does a little bit more than your Deep Wounds, and it also will generate rage, but I'll talk about that in a second. Now, after we pick up Blood and Thunder, if we can swing down to the left side of the tree, we also gain access to that Avatar cooldown, and we have access to Unstoppable Force once again. Avatar increases the damage of your Thunderclap by 50% and reduces its cooldown by 50%. So we're able to spam it way more often, giving us in turn more Demo Shouts, which grants more rage, which goes into this very very nice feedback loop. Now, there is also a cool talent here called Blood Surge. So periodic bleed effects, both including deep wounds and your rend, are now going to give you rage. So you have this really good sustained rage generation, which in turn provides a very nice, fun feedback loop. So this has been really fun. You're going to get to see me go through this dungeon really quick and kind of show you exactly how much damage rend is doing. Now, if we look at the breakdown in details briefly, you can see that over the course of this dungeon, rend and deep wounds together did about 30% of my damage, which is just really kind of nuts to think about that. A dot for warrior is doing 30% of your damage. Now, I'm not the best warrior in the world. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but it's super, super fun to play. Now, something else that I kind of wanted to look at was right here, resources rage generated. So if we come here and look at our rage generation, we are actually seeing that Blood Surge is about a 10% rage, buff. So having 10% more rage generation from your periodic effects is just super nice. We're obviously getting a lot from Shield Slime and just like rage in general from being hit. We also have War Machine, which is awesome. It's a nice little talent pickup. And the extra rage from this is just incredible. I don't really know what to say. I'm having so much fun with this tank right now. The other tanks that I've tested just aren't as fluid, aren't as fun. The other ones, like the other tanks, not that they're bad, but they're clunky. Warrior just feels really smooth right now, and I really don't have any complaints. So that's my little breakdown of the Prot Warrior. You'll probably see a couple of gameplay clips here shortly. Now let's just jump over to a clip and show you guys exactly what I mean when I'm saying that this class just feels super, super fun. Oh, and last but not least, let's look at our healing breakdown too. We have Ignore Pain and Indomitable, like usual, carrying, but we also have access to a ton of leech from our talent build, as well as Pain and Gain. Pain and Gain is actually going to be a talent in your warrior base tree, which is when you take damage, you actually going to heal for 4.5% of your max health. This is actually almost word for word what Condensed Atmosphere did for us. Most tanks and some DPS classes would actually run that, so we have access to this, as well as Siphoning Strikes, which is actually, I think this is the Fury tree, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe this is Arms. But anyways, we go into Berserker Stance, down into Siphoning Strikes, and we just have a flat 5% leech now. And of course, then we have the War Machine for extra rage generation. Big fan of this wombo combo. So yeah, it's just been really enjoyable. So I just so happened to test Ruby Life Pools like I already mentioned before. Now, here is why this dungeon is so fun and why this warrior is so fun. So as you can see here, I'm kind of getting just kind of set up here. I'm pulling this very first Primal Juggernaut, which is a pretty scary mob, actually, I think, in Mythic Plus once we get to that point. But this is a normal dungeon. Now we're kind of spreading our deep wounds. We're making sure we're thunderclapping, just kind of generating threat here. And we're running through. Not that there's anyone in our group, so it really doesn't matter. And then I'm making sure that I'm applying a rend, which I actually don't do here. I was out of range, it looks like. And then once I finally apply rend and start thunderclapping, I'm going to go into Avatar and Demo Shout are already rolling. And now look at these rend debuffs just get applied over and over and over again. And you can kind of see our rage is constantly just like jumping up, both from, the auto attacks we're getting, from the bleed dots that are ticking, from obviously like things like War Machine, Shield Slam, Thunderclaps, all are generating rage in this really nice feedback loop. Like Avatar just wore off and I already have it again, which leads into those outburst stacks, and we're just actually crushing it. Now, one thing I forgot to do is I forgot to display the overall the damage in the poll. It's right now showing overall, which is obviously not great because I think I hit something right before I came into the dungeon. But at the end of this poll, I think I was doing around like 45, 50k. It slowed down a little bit at the end because, of course, I fucked up just a little bit. and like mobs started to die, and that naturally will make you do less damage when there's less mobs to hit. But yeah, warrior just feels super tanky. You can see my health. I'm just like not taking damage at all. Now, of course, you can be like, oh, well, you're geared. Well, yeah, I am pretty geared, but it was just so fun. So if we fast forward a little bit, I will eventually show exactly how much damage I was doing down in this right hand corner. So right here we're looking, I did 45.9k DPS for that entire pull. Now obviously that was a pretty massive pull. I constantly chained and I pretty much was able to just be really aggressive. You could see here my breakdown actually on screen. We had Thunderclap did about 30% of my damage, Revenge was doing about 25%, and then that Rend and Deep Wounds Wombo combo just doing an outstanding 31% of my damage. Now, if you're looking at this, you're seeing Word of Recall old. That's actually my melee attacks, so you can pretty much ignore that. And then, of course, we have like things like Devastator and our Codex of First Technique trigger that I still have on. But for the most part, those top 4 damaging abilities is really what's carrying the meat of this. So I'm really happy to see kind of the bleed build, or a bleed build, come into play. So, and that pretty much does it. That is why Warrior is currently my favorite tank. I hope you guys enjoyed this little quick breakdown of what's going on with Warrior. Now, at the time of doing this, I was level 64, so not too far into the zones. I've been able to run a lot of dungeons. There's a lot of bugs still on. Right now, currently, the reason I'm making this video is that there's a couple of dungeons that are bugged. So as soon as you zone in, it just instantly disconnects you, and then you can't really play that character, or you eventually have to sneak your way out of the dungeon by getting disconnected, walking 5 feet, getting disconnected, relogging back in, walking 5 feet until you're out of the dungeon, which has been super annoying. But man, is this fun. So I will have more updates. So if you like this type of content, feel free to hit that subscribe button and that like button. It lets me know to keep doing content like this. All right, hope you guys are staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.